Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. A couple of news articles, and then I want to look at the timeline of the return of the Lord quickly and look at the interest rate situation and the banking situation and the digital currency setup that's happening. China is using bogus COVID tests as an excuse to freeze billions in deposits, lock residents out of bank accounts. So, similar to the situation where um, they were blocking protesters from protesting the banks, which were freezing the accounts by way of the QR code. Basically, they would scan their phone to try and get near the bank because there's barriers and fences and security points you need to get through to get to the bank. And when they scanned their security code, of course, they were flagged as having COVID, so they weren't allowed to get near the bank. China was doing this to everybody who they figure was going to protest the bank. Well, they're using the COVID test against the people, saying, no, your COVID test came back as positive. You're locked out of this, locked out of that. Your bank account's frozen. You need to self-isolate, whatever. They're using this to control the population. And I'm not saying that they're using this to control the population everywhere, but they certainly are, and it's obvious in China that they're using this to control the population. Now there's stories all over the place about this, and this is what they will do in the last days. The mark of the beast. The world government will use whatever the medical issue is at the time to limit your movements if you're not doing what the government wants. This is just what's coming, and China is a great example of basically pretty much everything that the mark of the beast is and allows them to do in terms of social credit score and limiting movement, limiting freedoms if you don't do what they want. This is CNBC. The situation is serious. Germany plans to fire up coal plants as Russia throttles gas supply. So their energy needs are not being met by all their renewable energy. And so they're firing up coal plants now because Russia is cutting them off from the supply of gas. This is a serious situation. Even in the United States, they're talking about blackouts, rolling blackouts, energy issues this summer, and it's going to get worse as we go into the winter, as a lot of our energy supplies are not online. The U.S. government certainly is not helping. They could help by building the pipeline from Canada to the U.S., but they're not going to do that, of course. They continue to revel in the fact that fossil fuels are being limited and are forcing people to alternative modes of transportation. The governments love this stuff because this is the green agenda. And even though it's hard on Americans and Canadians, they don't care. They like the end goal that, it's forcing everybody over to electric, even though nobody can afford electric. So this is an interesting situation. At least Germany is going with coal plants. But they have a critical energy issue. And when winter rolls around, what's going to happen then? There's going to be a lot of people freezing come winter in Europe and North America. U.S. farmers. This is from healthimpactnews.com. U.S. farmers issued dire warnings of looming food shortages as most Americans are clueless as to how their food is produced and unprepared for what's coming. And I love this image from a soup kitchen from the Great Depression in the United States. And this is what it's going to look like. Although the soup kitchen is going to be not run by people who just want to help other people. It's going to be run by the government. The government's going to be paying all the bills for everybody. And if the government is providing everything, they're going to expect something from you. If you're accepting something from them, they're going to expect basically your servanthood. You're going to be a slave to the government. You're going to have to do what the government wants. If you don't do what the government wants and you speak out against the government, you're not going to receive benefits. You're not going to receive food. You're going to be starving. And this is how they're going to control the population. Now, this is no, pie in the sky sort of idea. This is what they're already doing in China. This is how the government is doing it. Now, they're giving you incentives to get this and that. Remember when they were paying people money to get COVID vaccinations? They're pushing you in a certain direction, using good things and bad things to encourage you, quote unquote, to do something that they want. You know what? Fauci came out and said, the lockdowns and the restrictions, the flight restrictions. The main purpose of that is to basically coerce people to get the jab. And he came out and said that. I think it was about the flights. Basically, there's no reason to limit people on flights other than to coerce and to force people over to get vaccinated, even though they didn't really want to. And this is what the government's doing. And this is all okay, apparently. It's a scary situation to be, in the free world, North America, United States, to be in a situation where the governments are doing this and coercing and forcing, using psychological warfare on their citizens, using your own money, your taxpayer dollars, to do these sorts of things. Let's look at the timeline of the return of the Lord quickly. This is from my keynote presentation, Timeline of the Return of the Lord. We're talking about the steps of the mark of the beast, and this is kind of the thing on the horizon. They want to move to this. You'll note that there's trouble in the economy right now. There's rising inflation, and the economy is going downwards. We're heading into recession. Recession is usually when they print money out of thin air and they give people lots of free money and lower interest rates to get the credit flowing, to get people buying houses and building things to prop up the economy. They can't do that right now, however, because there's not much of an interest rate currently to drop it. I heard typically they need at least 5 percentage points to decrease the interest rates during a recession to make any difference. If it's anything less than 5 points in interest rates, it doesn't really encourage people to go out and borrow a bunch of money. So they're nowhere near that. They raise the interest rates about 75 basis points, or 0.75%, but they're not where they need to be to kind of go back down in the other direction. And so they will want to go negative interest rates, but they can't go negative interest rates because what happens? Well, people who have any money in the bank are going to pull it out of the bank. And they don't want that. They don't want a massive run on the bank because if interest rates are negative, that means you pay the bank to keep your money in the bank. That means the incentive there is for you to pull your money out of the bank and store it under your mattress. They don't want that. They want the money to stay in the banking system, because if the money stays in the banking system, the banks can reuse that and bet and reloan the money that you have in your bank account. They can reloan it to other people. They can gamble with it on the stock markets. They can do all sorts of things with it. And if there's negative interest rates, there's not going to be that money for them to do that with. So there will be trouble loaning money to other people if you pull your money out of the bank. Well, if they want to go negative interest rates, that means basically that they have to go to a digital currency. So you've heard of CBDC. Central bank, CBDC, central bank digital currency. They have this. They're talking about it. They want to implement it, and they will do as soon as possible, because once they move away from cash, physical cash, they can then just inject money straight into your bank account if they want to help you out, for a period. They want to get you on the government dole. They want to get you dependent on government money. They can do that, and then they can go negative interest rates to encourage banks to lend even more money, so that even more people are dependent on banks and owing our debtors effectively to banks and government. And if you owe somebody, you're much more likely to do what they say to keep in good good reference with them. And so the government knows this, and the government knows you will be more compliant if you are in debt to them or to the banks. You will be more compliant. You will be less likely to rise up and protest. So steps of the mark of the beast are interest rates head to zero as economic woes continue. And that's still where we are. They increase interest rates a little bit to deal with inflation, but we're heading in a recession. We're in a recession right now. And that means they need to go back down to zero, and the central banks know it to deal with that recession. So central banks will go negative to further help the markets. People will then start pulling their money out of the bank, and then they're going to start hoarding cash. And then what is the government going to do? Well, they're going to restrict cash. They're going to get rid of it in the name of climate change, and the name of preventing the next pandemic, because passing cash hand to hand is, of course, dirty and deadly. And once they restrict cash, it's only going to be criminals who use cash, and they're moving that way, to saying, you know what, it's, if you want cash, it must mean you're a criminal. If you don't want it to be tracked, if you don't want the government to know what you're doing with the cash, must mean you're a criminal and you're doing something illegal with that money. So we need to get rid of that cash. They're going to move there quickly. So the government removes cash altogether and creates an electronic cashless system based on CBDC. Now, they're not going with crypto. They're not going with Bitcoin. They can't control Bitcoin. They don't own it. They want their own money system that they can control, that they can fully track, and that they can do what they want with. And if it is their own CBDC, their own crypto, their own digital currency, they can shut you off if they don't like what you're doing. If they think you're a criminal, they can freeze your bank account. If you are a participant in the Freedom Convoy that happened in Canada, they're going to freeze your bank account. You're doing something that the government doesn't like, and so they're going to shut you down. That's exactly what they did in Canada. It's a scary situation. It's unprecedented. And the governments have done this, and the citizens of the world have shown that they will do nothing to stand up against this. I got to give to all those people who participated in the convoy. They took some real hits financially. And what happened to all the money that was given to them? It's still held up on Give, Send, Go, wherever all that money is still held up. They can't do anything with it because the government still has a lock on all that money. It's going through the courts now. And are any of the truckers going to see it? Probably not. And so in the last days, people are going to get tired of protesting. No one's going to protest the government. No one's going to stand up to the government. They will allow a mark of the beast, a world government, to come into the situation. At that point, at this point already, we're to the point where only Jesus can make things right again. So where are we on the timeline? Well, I believe, it is the year 2022. We're heading into the middle of 2022, the 6th month, June. And we're well within that Shemitah year that started on the Jewish calendar from September, October 2021, heading into September, October 2022, which I believe is the kickoff of the 7-year period. So things got to ramp up pretty quickly if that's correct or not. And that goes up until Rosh Hashanah, like I say, September, October timeframe, 2022. So Rosh Hashanah 2022 would be kind of the kickoff of that 7-year period. So, like I say, things are going to ramp up soon. And we've already been warned a summer of drought, heat waves, blackouts, rolling blackouts, economic trouble. The food shortages will really hit home next year when there's no crop, at the end of this year, or a very limited crop, and this war in Russia drags on, and there's food troubles and energy troubles all over, and the price of gas and fuel, home heating oil, skyrockets as we enter the winter period without any resolution to the Russia-Ukraine situation, and that's going to hit people. People won't be able to afford anything. They'll be starving. They'll be freezing. There'll be riots. There'll be people getting very, very angry. There'll be people who are desperate. And when people are desperate, they don't care anymore. They're going to break the law. If they're hungry, they will break the law to get food. And this is what is coming. And it says in the last days there will be violence. Men and women, there will be no love left between men and women in society. There will just be violence, danger, and it's going to be a crazy world, and a scary world for many who haven't read their Bible, who haven't recognized that these things are coming upon us. So this is how close we are. I think it starts the 7-year period near the end of this year. We'll see if a world leader steps up, and that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Who is that world leader? When does the world get bad enough economically, and in terms of famine, and global energy crisis. When is the world bad enough to where the citizens of the world will accept a mark of the beast, digital currency, a world government situation? And they're already trying to hand over sovereignty to world organizations. There was already an attempt to hand over medical sovereignty of all countries to the WHO, to the World Health Organization. That failed, but they're going to keep trying that, and they will succeed in that. All the sovereignty, all your freedoms will be given over to a world government. This is what they're working on. This is what they're pushing towards in the name of public health and safety, in the name of, feeding the nations, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to wrap it in all things that sound good and nice, but at the end of the day, all your freedom is lost. And the only freedom we have is those who are saved in Jesus Christ and have freedom in Christ, because we know that He's going to come back and make everything right. So be prepared, folks. Thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next video.